Hello my Valorant friends, my name's Blargenflarg, and today our objective is to show you how to put every single site on Haven on absolute lockdown. After that, I'm going to show you how to defend yourself while on offense. Before we get started, I just wanted to thank you guys for stopping by and watching my video, and remind you that if you enjoy what I do, to hit that like and subscribe button down below. Go over and check out my Twitter for content updates, life updates, and just everything that's happening Valorant. And don't forget to check out my live stream over on Twitch every Tuesday and Friday night. Now, before I trip over my words anymore, let's show you some different Tripwire and Cam setups so that you can lock down these sites and win some rounds. So here in short, I've got about 3 different Tripwire spots and 2 camera spots that I'd like to show you today, and I'll show you exactly why I use those spots. First off, let's start off with the camera locations, and my first is the more aggressive of the 2. If you walk right down to this doorway here, you don't even have to reveal yourself, and you push up until you can throw your camera into this corner. Just like so, you'll be able to back all the way up around this corner here, and this gives you all the information on anybody coming down into sewers or pushing towards the short side. The next spot I'm going to show you is just in case the enemy's catching on to your camera in sewers, you can have a more defensive spot while still watching close to the same angle with most of that same information. If you go just through this doorway into the ramp up towards A, you'll be able to put your camera in this upper corner up here. Obviously, this spot's extremely defensive and doesn't give you as much information, but at the same time, it's never going to get destroyed unless you shoot a dart into somebody, which will make them turn and look for your camera. As you can see from the camera, you get all the information that you need here on anybody pushing up this ramp. Now, when it comes to tripwires, like I said, I've got 3 different tripwires that I want to show you here in the sewer location, and I don't suggest that you use any 2 of these at the same time unless you have a trusted teammate watching the A long site and you don't need to support them at all. The first one is coming off of the corner of this gray box up here on the right side and comes to the doorway. I know it's a weird angle, but it's actually, if you look at this corner here, specifically designed so that it will be at an odd angle. Most people aren't looking to go diagonally across a room with a tripwire, and so it's going to come off of their radar and it's going to be less likely for them to notice it and more likely for them to hit it. Keep in mind, this is only going to work a time or 2 before people catch on to it and start to destroy it before running into it. The next spot that I have is in a similar fashion, a great 1 or 2 time or every couple of rounds tripwire to throw because people don't look for it very often and it's going to catch them off guard. But if you throw right here on this sandbag, it will actually cross to the side of this doorway here, and this also is guaranteed to catch anybody coming through here. They can't really get around it unless they notice it and come over to this edge and then try and jump across it diagonally, in which case they're still likely to hit their foot on it or they're going to be jumping and you're going to hear them. So no matter what, you get information. Like I said before though, you can see the location for where this tripwire is placed, so it's not the best and will only work a time or 2 and then get destroyed afterwards. So don't use this every round, maybe every couple of rounds at best. The last tripwire I have for you to defend from short or sewers is actually going to be thrown from these 2 wood beams across each other. This one you can use every single round, no questions asked, and will guaranteed give you some sort of information. From the outside in, they'll be able to see the wire before they hit it, but they can't destroy it without running into the wire. You can't even see it until you're already inside of the wire here. Same on the other side is actually an even tougher situation. So the only way they're going to get past this wire is if they're using a grenade of some sort or some sort of utility to shoot through it and hit it. Now, just like I had on the short side, I've got 2 different cameras that I would like to show you on a long. One is a more aggressive style where you're going to be taking fights, and the other camera angle is more for a defensive and retake style. So the first camera I like to throw basically anywhere behind this box. I generally throw it really low because people are less likely to look at their feet and they don't want to have their aimer pointed at the ground. This one, like I said, is a little bit more aggressive and will show you anybody coming up around this corner. The one thing you have to be careful about is if this corner gets smoked off and enemies push past to the other side, or they're just pushed past to the other side in general, they're more likely to be watching the backside of this brick pallet and will actually see your camera. Otherwise, if they're just pushing up to here and trying to go down long, they're not very likely to notice it. And the second spot, which like I said, is more of a passive or retake style camera, is actually all the way back into the site. If you come up to this corner, you can jump and get it placed extremely high on the edge here. This camera is not seen around this corner here and can just look straight down on the site and see basically everybody. And while you're approaching the site, you would basically have to break your neck looking all the way up at the top of this roof here to even get the camera onto the edge of your screen. And if you want to look all the way at the camera, you are basically just staring into the sky, which is obviously good for the defenders, and you could just peek them and kill them. So they're not going to do that. It's stupid. Unfortunately, due to how it's set up and just the nature of the walls and corridors coming along it doesn't have as many nice, tricky spots that you can place a tripwire, or really any that you can place without the enemy being able to destroy them before running into them. That being said, I still have a few spots that I would suggest that you can use a time or two and just rotate around and use a couple different ones. Even generic tripwires work pretty well on this spot because it will give you time and information if they destroy them. Now, remembering what I said before about there just being a lot of open corridors with straight walls, so you can't really hide tripwires very well, that doesn't mean that I just want you to throw tripwires straight across open spaces. I still want you to try and be at least a little bit tricky with them. And the way that you do that is by placing them on a flat wall facing towards an angled wall, or on an angled wall facing towards an untouchable wall. These give a misinformation or misguided information to the enemy because they don't think that you can have a tripwire there. They're used to thinking, oh, tripwires go from point A here to point B here across straight surfaces. Whereas if you place it on this door here and it jumps across, it's now going to this wall here. Whereas in all reality, normally if you place one on this wall here, it just goes straight across. You see what I mean? With all that being said, the next place I like to place a tripwire is on this pallet of bricks here. This makes it so that one side is indestructible and the other side is facing towards a wall that is going in the opposite direction. This is what it would look like if you normally had a tripwire on this wall. Now, of course, if you're using the more laid back camera, you really just want to kind of put a tripwire further back in this area. This isn't to stop the enemies, it's more so to slow them down and give you time to relay this information to your team so that you can get better support. Placing them anywhere along these obvious and generic walls will do you pretty well. And it's just gonna, like I said, delay them. It's not gonna stop them entirely. No tripwire will ever stop an enemy entirely. Okay, so now we've hit the B site on Haven, and I really only have one good aggressive camera for you, and that is just outside of here. While staying hidden behind this wall here, you can actually jump up and throw your camera out so that you can see outside of the site, and similar to the one on the passive side of the long angle on A, this one's really good because it's so high up in the air, nobody's gonna look this high up looking for a camera. It would be a detriment to their own life trying to do so. Now, with that being said, I'm ready to blow your mind using tripwires on the B site, because as much as it looks like it's really squared away and doesn't have any good angles on it, if you really look closely at these walls, you'll notice that Riot, whether intentionally or unintentionally, made them perfect for Cypher. Each one of these wooden panels on the wall is Cypher's playground. This is where he lives and does his dirty work. Watch this. Boom. 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 And lastly, using this beautiful little bell hiding in the corner here, boom. Obviously, I'm only showing you the front side of the site here, but look at this maze of beautiful tripwires set up at absolute off angles. How many of you have ever walked into the B site and seen so many different angles, or thought of so many different angles that you can put a tripwire using Cypher? All that you normally think about is, great, I could throw a generic tripwire here. I can throw a generic tripwire here. Maybe I'll be unconventional and throw it between the doors. Wow. When in reality, you have all of these different angles that you can play with. And if you head towards the back of the site and look at all the different panels back here, you realize that there's so many more angles that you just never would have thought about. When it comes to defending the garage on Haven, honestly, your best bet is to use my one-way smoke plus camera setup that I made in a previous video on Cypher one-way smokes. I'll put the card right up there if you really want it. Otherwise, stick around and I'll show you some great tripwire plus camera combos that'll help you defend the garage. First off, there's really about 2 good camera spots. As per usual, one of them is offensive and one of them is defensive. If you're feeling ballsy, get right up here and throw your camera up onto that box. This camera gives you a good deal of information all the way out into the courtyard. Just be careful about sitting on it for too long because it's not very well defended. Next up, if you're looking to have a nice passive defense on garage like most players, because you're honestly either playing passive or pushing out the doors for the most part, you just come right up here and throw your camera all the way up high on top of the bar. This is a great spot because they can't just sit there and look straight up while walking through the double doors, but you can sit on your camera and wait for them to walk through while keeping yourself hidden. Now for the tripwires, remember, just like in the B site, boxes and angles are your best friend, and there's just a couple in here, but you can make great use of them. For example, here on this box, you can go right across to the platform here so that anybody going towards the window gets hit here. Similarly, you can go across on that bell and hit there. This one is actually one of my favorites because they're going to jump up and pop their head into it. Probably the most common tripwire in the garage is to go just straight across on this box to the wall here. Honestly, like I said, it is extremely common and way overused, but it seems like it still catches people at least once or twice every single game that I play, which makes me laugh more than anything. And finally for garage, I like to use some different vertical tripwires as well. As much as they're not the best for catching people because they show a very limited area, I still like to use different ones such as this one here going towards C, because most of the time people are going to be walking down the center of the aisle or close to the center and it's going to catch them. Or if you throw one above the door here in a slightly vertical but still diagonal pattern, it's really good for catching people as well, because almost everybody that pushes through the garage stays towards these boxes on the right side here because it gives them a better peek into the C site. Well guys, what can I say? Honestly, defending the C site, the best I can do for you once again is to plug my one-way smoke guide up here and tell you to use the one-way smoke for C long and defending it that way. But I know one-way smokes and aggressive peeks are not always optimal for every player. So with that in mind, I would still like to show you at least one defensive camera and a couple potential tripwire spots. That defensive camera is actually directly in front of us here, just heading right up to this corner, jump way up high and get her right up there. Because like we looked at on the A site, anybody turning around this corner is looking at headshot level all the way around here, and they will not be looking high enough to see a camera that's like 3 times their height. It's also great because it shows you everywhere on the site. Otherwise, I would put it back under this awning back here or up above it so that it gives you nice coverage. The problem there is that you have these big old boxes in the way, so you can't see people entering, where you can on this side here. Aside from that, the C site is such an open site that it's extremely hard to get good tripwires in, and all the spots that you can put tripwires are pretty expected from the enemy. Those being spots between this elevator here and the site boxes, and then of course as well the wood and stone pallets and the site boxes here. Nevertheless, I'll still show you some spots that I like to use here, and that would be mainly going off of this tarp. You can get different angles to go to the generator to at least hopefully catch enemies off guard by making it so that they don't just go straight across. As you can see here, the actual angles on the generator are pretty good for catching different ways and directions. And then over here on the wood side of the site, this box on site actually is a big debater. Here you can see it looks like you're going to get an amazing angle for a tripwire, but once you go to throw it, it just shoots straight across and debates you real hard, and you end up disappointed. So I wanted to show you this just in case you thought that we were going to find something neat and cool here, and I didn't really want you to get disappointed. You can throw some at slight angles, but most of them don't give you what they're really showing. Now that you know how to defend yourself on site, the last thing I want to do is show you how to defend yourself while attacking the sites on Haven. There's only one spot that you will ever need a camera. All you have to do is jump up onto this little ledge here, and then jump up and throw your camera onto this lantern here. You want to get it as high as possible, so as you saw there, that's not exactly ideal. You definitely can get it up higher. But the nice thing about this camera is that it's way up and out of sight and gives you vision along the entire T-side corridor all the way from A to C. Now, to complement that camera, let's throw a couple offensively defensive tripwires, I guess you would say. The first one is going to be right across here. This is great because it's inside two things of foliage here where it's not going to be very noticeable if they've got their detail on high at least. I can't really speak to how this looks on low detail though. The next one's inside the mid window area and goes from underneath this chair here across. This is great because it's hidden really well underneath this chair and catches people pretty often. I really like to throw one angled off of this pot across the stairs here because it's such a weird angle that it catches people off guard very often, and it does catch them no matter which side of the stairway they're going to. No matter where they're at, even if it doesn't look like it, this does catch the top of their head here. If you're heading towards the C site, remember that lanterns are your friend, and you can angle a tripwire right across off the top of this lantern to the wall over here. And this is great for catching enemies off guard, like we do every time, because it's just a really unconventional angle. In the same fashion, you can actually angle a tripwire off of this weird little broken wind chime thing to go across to the wall here and catch people hugging around towards the seaside as well. Well guys, I think that's pretty much it. You've just about exhausted my repertoire of defensive tripwires and cameras for Haven. I hope you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button down below. I'll see y'all later.